In thinking about this topic, a bunch of thoughts ran through my mind, so I just composed this little set of thoughts, more to provoke myself, but maybe it'll provoke some of you too. And the title of it is "The Heart Can Wander and Lose Its Home." The notion of the heart language is a contested one. However, I think it is a worthy notion in capturing a center of convergence between emotion, authenticity, veracity, well-being, security, and existential presence. In June 1973, my wife Kathy and I arrived at Victoria Station in London. We had just arrived from France, where we had spent 10 months learning as much French as we could in that time. We needed to find a taxi at Marylebone Station to catch a train to High Wycombe. We found a queue outside along the road, something common in the UK, but not so in France. So I asked Kathy to wait in the queue while I went to the head of the queue to see if it was for taxis. It was. When I returned, I found Kathy in tears. They were flowing down her face. I asked her what was wrong. She said nothing. She said something like, "It's just that I can look at all these signs on the buildings and all along the street, and I don't have to think to know what they mean. It's just there." What is it about one's own language that is just there? I think of the woman in the Mbeya region in Tanzania. She participated in a Conde story workshop about HIV/AIDS. At the end, she said something like, "I heard all of this before in Swahili, but I did not believe what I heard. Now that I heard it in my language, I know it is true." What is it about one's language that has a voice of veracity as opposed to the language of the outsider or oppressor? I think of Oga in Ikom, Nigeria. He works in the local government, but is also an entrepreneur and provides a number of different services to clients. He's an elder in his church and preaches periodically. He grew up in an Ijagam village and speaks the language well. His wife, a school teacher, also speaks Ijagam, but she prefers to speak to us in English. Their young children, growing up in the town of Ikom, do not speak Ijagam, but Pidgin English. One evening, as I was sitting alone with Oga, we got into the topic of the Ijagam New Testament. I asked him if he read it, because I knew he had to preach in English in town, not in Ijagam. He said he did read it. He explained. When things are not going well, or there are difficulties, I sit down with my Ijagam New Testament and read. Gradually, my heart is stilled, and I'm aware that God is still God and he cares for us. I can relax and rest in him. What is it about the scriptures in one's childhood language that allows it to calm the emotions and return one to confidence in God? I think of the Catholic Archbishop Wurtzikoff in Cameroon. Back in October 1976, he shared an experience he had in his own language. His name may sound like a Slavic name, Wurtzikoff, but he is a speaker of the Insult language in Cameroon, and his name means born in the bush. One Sunday, he visited his home area and spoke in one church in Pidgin English, spoke in the other in his home language, Insult. Both churches were country churches with only Insult speakers in them. He told the same jokes and gave the same message in both. He noticed that few people laughed at his Pidgin English jokes, but when he told them in the Insult service, there was much laughter in response. When he taught the lesson, he received few audience responses to various phrases or important points in the Pidgin service, but in the Insult service, he received many responses and affirmation. The next week, he went back to the two same churches to continue his experiment. This time, he did the same as the week before, but there was a difference. In the first church, the Pidgin church, it was the same group of people. In the second, the audience had doubled. What is it about jokes and spiritual language in their own language that captures the physical and emotional response of a people? I think of Liz, who grew up as a missionary kid in Algeria. She went to school in French, played in the streets with her friends speaking Arabic, and lived with her parents and siblings where they used English, American English, in the home. I met her in 1972-73. She was one of the French teachers or professors at the French school we attended. I thought of her as an American, but one day I saw her in an animated conversation with some North Africans, all speaking Arabic together. That led me to ask her what language she thought in and what language she dreamed in. She went to university in the US and spoke fluent American English. Now she was serving as a professor of French, and she could speak fluent Arabic. In response, she said she did not know the answer to that question. She asked me to give her a week to figure it out. She came back after a week and said she had figured it out. She said that she continues to think and dream most often in the language she last spoke in. What is it about knowing a language fluently, like a home language, that allows us to think and dream in it? What allows the heart to wander and expand its boundaries to permit more than one language to speak deeply to them? I think of educated Ajagams with PhDs in economics, science, engineering, even one with military degrees from the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst in UK, commissioned in the Queen's Army, later trained at the École de Guerre in Paris. Others doctors, lawyers, professors, and so on. These are the educated elite, constituting less than 1% of the Ajagam population. They are the bright and the successful. These are often the ones that have spent so much time outside the home area after the first 12 years that they speak Ajagam well enough to function back home, but who now feel more comfortable in English or French or both. If I am to have a deep conversation with them about life and worldview issues, it will not be in Ajagam, it will be in English in most cases. These are the brightest, but most of them would not make the best translators because they never gained the art of Ajagam. Their linguistic aptitude and art is stronger in English. They know the basic grammar of Ajagam, but not the multitude of idioms and metaphors or the poetic turns of phrase that are used back home. What is it that allows the heart to diminish in one language and flourish in another as the language of their identity? What is it about their role in society and the people who they spend all day with that allows them to become home in a European language? I call it the heart language, where one is just there, sensing veracity, authenticity, and depth of feeling. It's not cognition. If we are looking for less of a metaphor and something more descriptive, we might call it the acquired reflex language. It is the deepest language in our being. Certainly the woman in the home village fixing the evening sauce and fufu, the school teacher in the local elementary, the entrepreneur government worker, the church leader, the fluent multilingual, the highly educated leader, all have different identities composed of a complex mix of ascribed and achieved markers. But one marker that is part of each of their complexities is the reality that they speak the home language or a set of home languages, whether elegantly or instrumentally. For many people, there is one language, for others, a set of languages that connect them deeply with the core of their being, their consciousness, and self-awareness within the larger external world. These experiences with language are existential and instantaneous, not delayed by rational reflection or repetition, not intentional. These experiences not at the surface level, but reach down into the deeper levels of our being, our well of subconsciously archived experience.